I don't think it really turned a corner for me until Sean said the Marvel #1 comic was dropping and you need to get it. And at that time, I did not get up at 8 a.m. That was not something I did. So I was more or less annoyed that I was getting pressured to do this. And I was just like, you know what, I'm going to do it. So I spent the $7. I went back to sleep. And then later on, I woke up and I checked what I had and I was like, okay, screenshot. And I sent it to him and I was like, hey, is this any good? And it was like seconds later, I got a call and he's like, you got a low mint secret rare.
Whoa.
You sell that, I will. He's like, you sell that, I will disown you as a friend. Like, it's like,
that's crazy.
Okay. Yeah.
Hey everybody, today we have a very special guest. He's the creator of the VeVe500 videos and the CollectorAtHeart The Series. He's also somebody who would spend 700 hours for a single video simply because the community loves it. He's also a VeVeVerse beta tester and somebody who is so talented and passionate about VeVe that Mr. V and I really admire. Today we have MetaVerse Lyfe. In this interview, we did a deep dive into his creative journey where he revealed some of the biggest secrets behind his incredible VeVe content. And also, as a VeVeVerse tester, he also discussed some insane alphas that you do not want to miss. Let's get to it. MetaVerse Lyfe, thank you so much for spending the time with us today. And congrats on the premiere of your latest work, the CollectorAtHeart Series. Oh, the series. I think this is episode 1, right?
That's right.
All right. It's amazing that you got the chance to travel around and meet people across the country and soon to be in Europe. As well, to share that passion for collecting and then VeVe, and then this series, and then VeVe500, and all the work you do for the Silicon Secure Foundation, among other. You have done a fantastic work, and we really enjoyed it. And thank you. And we are pretty honored because this is it feels like a press conference after that premiere. And we are super excited to learn more from you. And I know Mr. V has a pretty cool story about how he learned about you too.
Well, I'm honored to be here, guys. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
All right, MetaVerse Lyfe. So my first introduction to you was on Twitter, now X, right? It was the video where you used Star Trek collectible. Just like, for people out there who haven't seen the video, if they haven't seen it, there's somebody walking out of a garage, I believe. Is that you?
That's me, yeah.
All right. So you're walking out of a garage and you hear this loud music blasting. It's the Beastie Boys, I think. And then you're like looking around. You don't see anything out on the street, and then you you notice that there's this huge ship up above your head, and then you start yelling, and then somebody up there like opens a window, and there's like a back and forth, and there's some colorful language going on.
Yeah.
And that just had me like rolling. Just because like that's kind of, it's very much in tune with like my sense of humor. Like I love that kind of aggressive humor. Like it reminded me a bit of like something that Lewis Black, a comedian, or Bill Burr, or some of those like more angry humor kind of guys would put out there. But from that moment on, you had me sold on your content, and it's just been a real pleasure seeing how you've pieced together so many cool projects, and seeing where you've ended up now has been just really fantastic.
Well, thank you for saying so. I do have to give credit to how I started to Sean O'Hare from Comics and Crypto, who had been kind of like nibbling at me for probably about 6 months and being like, hey, you should do stuff, you'll have fun in the space. And it wasn't until I did the Boba Fett video, I think was my first one. And he's like, post it, you gotta post it. And I did it, and then I was like, oh, that was kind of fun. And then that took off, and I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm in it now. So yeah, then I got to just experiment, which was a lot of fun.
So on that note, it was very impressive to me at the very least, just because I'm not very sorry, can you guys hear that?
Yeah. Oh no, we can hear you, but we're fine.
Yeah,
okay.
You're fine.
All right. So we'd like to know, what's your background what's your background in? Like, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, and and then see like if we could segue to how you ended up on VeVe.
Sure. So I grew up in Northern California, and I pretty much knew I wanted to be in the film industry since I was very young. My dad handed me a camera when I was like 10 years old, just one of those home video cameras, right after I had heart surgery and just couldn't spend any time with my friends over the summer. So he gave me something to do, and I just started filming little movies around the house and just kind of fell in love with it. And after high school, I pretty much jumped right in, decided that I wanted to start my own company and start working in like corporate video and that kind of stuff to just like pay the bills and learn at the same time. And that was an awesome time in my life. It was brutal grind, of course. And now I've been doing commercials and some series, and been in development of a bunch of film projects over the past few years, and it's been a wild time. And then Sean O'Hare, again, credit to him to get me into VeVe, because he wouldn't stop talking about it. And Sean, if you know him, he's just a really excited guy. It's not like he's trying to show off or really sell you on anything. It's just like, this I think is cool, so I want my friends to know how cool it is. And it kind of just got to a point where I was like, all right, I'm just going to do it so he stops talking about it and gets off my back. And ultimately that fueled the fire, both for me in collecting and in him talking more about it. So that's how I kind of fell on my way into VeVe.
So what's pretty neat is how many people in the community gradually build this identity. Some people are known for particular things, and for you at least, how do you find, or how do you see yourself in terms of your identity and your role in since having started?
Real quick before I answer that question, something just fell over, so I just want to put it back. Sorry about that.
So I guess, like, in other words, how has your identity as MetaVerse Lyfe developed?
So that's a great question. The MetaVerse Lyfe brand was something that I could separate from my career path, because what I'm doing there is still storytelling, but it's in a totally different medium, where this one I get to do whatever I want creatively. I get to experiment and try new things, and tell the stories that I want without having, kind of like any sort of line of people okaying what I'm doing. It was interesting being involved in VeVe at first. When the first time I really got to experience VeVe Fam was New York Comic Con last year, and also the first time that I would be introducing myself as my first name, and people would have no idea who I was, which was fine, but I wouldn't get their first name back. It would be their avatar handles and that kind of stuff. So it was a learning curve a little bit to understand like that anonymity to everything. And I think the MetaVerse Lyfe brand really is still just focused on telling fun stories. That's really all I want to do, is just like entertain people and hope they get a laugh when I get a laugh, because I'm having a good time with it. I hope you have a good time with it. And more recently, moving on to this CollectorAtHeart Series, what I really wanted to do is highlight those people in the VeVe fam. I've been blessed to get to know so many people over the past year, and what was so intriguing to me was finding out how passionate people are, just in general, not necessarily about VeVe, but just about the things that they love, and hearing their collecting journeys. And it's so fun going down that path, because you get to know people on a whole new level outside of VeVe and outside of collecting, and just them as a person. And what I found is that just everyone I come into contact with has just been incredible. Like, they stand apart in their own right. Everybody's unique. Everybody has their own journey, not just in collecting, but in life. And especially with recent events, it is just like life is so short. It's just so there's so much more outside of digital collecting and physical collecting. It's just getting to know people on a human level.
Yeah, I do have a question for you, which is when you create these amazing videos, how were you able to integrate different collectibles into your work? Simply because, there are only certain things you can do with these collectibles from an AR perspective. But for example, your VeVe500 video, which is my favorite, you were able to animate them, animate the Lamborghinis and make them look like they are, they are running on the road and those kind of things. Did you 3D scan them, or did you get a file from VeVe? How were you able to integrate these awesome collectibles and animate them the way you want?
It's a great question. What I was doing was a mixture of using the collectibles from VeVe and filming them either on a green screen or bringing them into After Effects and just manipulating and creating a shot. But then there were certain collectibles that, especially like the Lamborghinis, I wanted to have more control over them. So I ended up using 3D models of the Huracan that were already in existence. And then just repainted them in a 3D modeling software and then brought that into After Effects and was animating from there. So it's not the actual physical collectible, it's a representation of it.
Wow. Okay. Because I know how hard it is to film these collectibles. When I first started making my VeVe content, I wanted to film showrooms. So what I did was I learned that filming showroom is extremely difficult because you can open up a showroom in like in AR mode, but if you walk around, your hands are very shaky, right? Then you would not get that quality, and then you have to position them in certain ways so that you get the shots you want. So I bought like a gimbal, and then I would put my phone on it. Then I would go to a baseball field, like my local park, somewhere where I have a lot of space, so I can walk around and with my phone on my gimbal and film these collectibles from different angles, because you need to walk around them. So it's pretty amazing that you were able to create these things. But from your experience, what was some of the most what were some collectibles that were most enjoyable for you to integrate, and what was some that was very challenging for you?
Well, first off, that was great that you grabbed the gimbal at, like, you were thinking about, like, how can I make this better, right? And that's like,
actually,
that
fun
is,
fact. Actually,
yeah, go ahead.
So I have my phone, but then I love filming people's showroom, right? And I realized that some collectibles are built differently. So if I were to open a showroom with maybe 2 Elsas or multiple golden moments, then my phone would crash. But if I were to open a showroom with the full Batman DC black and white series, then it would run smoothly. So all of these collectibles are somewhat different from a rendering perspective. So I bought this iPhone just for VeVe, and I have nothing on it, just so I can film these collectibles. So I understand the struggles and the challenges that you go through to film these videos.
Yeah. Well, okay. So then you get, like, yeah, you're right on it. Each one of those models are built differently. They can have higher detail, more reflections, that kind of thing. And that's just taxing on the iPhone or Android. One of the things that I know the VeVe community has voiced is like, oh, why aren't we seeing higher quality in these collectibles when we're opening up an AR or on the app? And what VeVe has done is that they were trying to integrate as many people as possible to be able to use the app. So part of that meant that they had to be able to incorporate for older technology, as far as like the iPhone 8. So if you're opening up AR on the iPhone 8, they want you to have a good experience. They don't want you to be sitting there trying to open a collectible and then it just crashes the app every time, right? So what we're seeing now is, and I'm sure we'll get into this later, but what we're seeing now in the VeVeVerse is bringing those collectibles in and seeing what kind of detail is there that we weren't able to see just in the AR app. To go back to your original question, though, some of the most fun collectibles that I've had to work with have nothing to do with the collectible themselves. It's just been the story to tell behind it, right? Like, you brought up the Star Trek one. I love the Enterprise as a collectible itself, but more fun to just like make that fun little sketch, right? The more difficult ones have been when I've stuck to just using the AR app to cut around. I'll give you an example, like using like the T-Rex, right? One of the first videos I worked on was, throwing the meat and then walking through his legs and then getting into the car. And there would be drift or tracking issues. And so it was a constant like going out and then like, okay, that didn't work, go back and try it again. And that'll just evolve as the technology evolves. And I think more fun would be Star Trek or even shooting the Blue Raptor video. Most fun was the first VeVe500, where I strapped an iPhone to a metal pole and then mounted that to my car and then synced the phone to my watch so I could look at the watch and see what was on the video screen and knew to hit record, and then I would just drive. And people were watching me go around the neighborhood with this pole just kind of going around everything. And yeah, it turned out to be so much fun because it was just such a technical challenge and trying to figure out how to put that all together.
So between all of the videos that you've created, what would you say was, I'm just taking a wild guess here, but I take it that the VeVe500 took you the longest to develop. What would you say was the most taxing part of that whole process?
Also, quick question. Can you tell us how long it took you to make that video from start to finish also?
Yeah, to make the most recent VeVe500, the Yosemite circuit took roughly 700 hours. And that was just me working on it every day, basically beginning of December through end of February when it launched. I will say that the most taxing part was using the software that I was using to be able to do all of the 3D modeling and animation. I will be the first to say that I am not an amazing 3D artist by any means. I just happen to have this small tool set that I know and I've known for years that I just keep kind of just pushing to its limits. And boy, did I push it to its limits on that project. I was using After Effects and it just loved to crash all the time. So it was just a constant, like, I would do one little thing, save. I'd do another little thing, save. And like, it was just a constant process of like, okay, it crashed, I got to reopen. And then sometimes it wouldn't reopen. I had to try and reopen again. And so I wonder how many less hours it would have been if I had an easier program to work within.
So I take it that VeVe, like someone from VeVe approached you for developing that project. What was that? Or did you take that on you took that?
I did that on my own. Yeah. That was not a VeVe project in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. So I went to them telling them that I was going to do another VeVe500 video. And they had already announced at DCon that the Lamborghini was going to be coming out. And so I knew that I wanted to incorporate those in some way into the video. I was also going to Yosemite the following weekend. And I planned on shooting a bunch of video to have as like plates for the racing video. So there's a lot of actual real footage in there. But David was very kind and was like, oh yeah, I think there's a way to put this all together. And so working with him and Dan, I was able to find out which models of the cars were going to be coming out so that I could actually, develop the whole video over the period of 3 months and have it ready to launch when the Lamborghinis had dropped. Of course, I was having to sign an NDA, so I couldn't share it to the world without getting in trouble. But they were very supportive, and I asked as many of the VeVe fam that I knew personally if they could get involved, and I asked the staff if they were willing to get involved, because I thought it would just be so much cooler to see how everybody comes together to create this project and make it better rather than just me doing it with like a few of my friends. So
Yeah.
So you shared that you voluntarily chose to do this project with the support and like the blessing of David and Dan, and so during that whole process, did you know what you were getting yourself into? Or like, so because you were saying that you were experiencing some struggles, right? Within or during those 700 hours, did you already know what software you wanted to use, all like the equipment, like all the devices, or was it a project that you wanted to kind of test yourself with?
It was definitely a building project, like figuring out more what I wanted to do along the way. I knew generally that I wanted it to be like a live event, and then I would cut to the race, and then I knew who would win by the end. I knew the cars, I knew the characters that would be in, but I didn't know how far I would expand it. I didn't know who I was going to do for the characters initially. It wasn't Homer Simpson and the Joker. It was Rick and Morty. And so that whole sequence was animated with Rick and Morty. And then the news dropped about the creator of the show, and all this bad press came out around it. And I was like, I can't use these characters anymore. So I had to go back and reanimate and have the new characters revoiced all from scratch. And the video was pretty much done by that point when I found out.
Wow.
So it was pretty rough. But then also there was just a lot of inspirations that came along the way. The VeVeVerse section was not a section I ever planned on. And then, just as a joke, somebody said like, oh, what if they went in a portal off the track? And I was like, oh man, that would be so cool. But it's going to be so much work.
That's going to be another 50 hours of my time.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when I was doing the sequence where Captain America gets hit by the missile, I was sitting right next to Spencer Vogel from Comics and Crypto, and he just happened to be playing that music track that plays when it's all in slow motion. And I was just working on it, and I heard it, and I was like, oh, damn you, Spencer, because that's so funny, and it needs to be in this. So it ended up being another 3 days of work just to get that to happen.
Wow, that is a lot of work. So were you able to do your 9 to 5 job, or did you spend your whole 3 days for that particular section?
I did have some shoots there, here and there, but where I am in the industry is specifically in the like pitching and development phase of some of the projects I'm working on. So it's a lot of just meetings when you take them. And then I'll occasionally have commercials here and there that I go shoot. So I had dedicated time to this project, and I ended up taking it and going like, this is what I'm going to focus on, and I'm just going to get it done. I definitely got to the end and was like, I need to go do some actual work now. So focused on that for a little bit longer afterwards.
Yeah. So do you plan to do this for long term, because you are doing it for free, because you love doing it? But at some point, well, from my perspective, at some point you need to, you may need some return to take it further. So do you plan to work with the VeVe team to take it to the next level, or what is your plan with this project? Because this is so many hours of your time and efforts too.
Well, I appreciate you asking that. I would say that we are in such a good position right now working on the CollectorAtHeart Series. This is something that is actually produced by VeVe, and they are actually paying for it. So it was a first collaboration with each other where there is money changing hands. But what's awesome is that David has said many times, I just want to trust your vision. I want you to be able to do what you want to do. Focus on that. And so what's been amazing is that like artist treatment, like you do what you want to do. We trust this. And I love that. And I would love to continue to do more. I think long term, I would personally love to be able to work with other creators to continue to build the brand MetaVerse Lyfe, but to continue to do bigger projects. because we all have lives, but it would be amazing to be able to see this grow into a team where we're creating more content, or we can all band together and work on these big projects together and be able to put out more of them a year rather than just one or two.
Yeah, I think you are the perfect guy. And I think they made the right choice to have you doing this, because you, compared to like a random advertising agency, you understand the community, you understand what people love, and you have the skills and the passion for it. So that's why I think the videos have resonated so much with everybody. You know, I can imagine VeVe hiring some expensive firms to do it, and they have no connection to the VeVe community. They don't care too much about advertising. They only take the project and they do it. And, it wouldn't click so much with everybody. So I think you're doing a fantastic job, and I can't wait for you to, you know, come out with more awesome videos in the future.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And I think the connection in the VeVe community, it goes beyond me, beyond the VeVe staff. I know that their mission is not to hire the big advertising agency and have them take over and just make it a big corporate mess. As you've seen and experienced, they're very open and very welcoming, and open. Like whenever there's a live event, they're just bringing each other in. We're all hanging out together. It's the first technology company that I've ever encountered like that would just open their arms and doors, and you know, a lot of people sleep on the couch kind of feel, you know, like that's it. It's unheard of.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you saying that.
I think what's special about you is you have the ability to turn things to life. For example, before I started watching your videos, my perception of these VeVe collectibles would be like, okay, these are like static, boring, 3D looking collectibles that I will see on my phone. Yeah. But you have brought them to life. And I think you are in a very special position, because it's when we go to the cinema today, it's either we watch a Marvel movie or a DC movie, but then what you are able to do is you are able to direct and create a movie that has all of the biggest IPs ever combined, and you are giving us a totally new perspective on what our collectibles can be. For example, that racing scene in VeVe500 resonated with me a lot, because I can see now, okay, these, you know, Lamborghinis, one day I can race them in the VeVeVerse. They actually move and they actually look awesome. And I can also combine so many characters from different IPs and build my own stories. I think that you have done it very successfully, and you've really inspired a lot of people. And that is the kind of marketing that is like priceless, you know, because it really opened people's mind up to so many possibilities.
Yeah, definitely. My focus when I was creating the content wasn't necessarily to represent the collectible as they are, but more of a speculation of what could be. And that has been something that I've been mostly pushing towards, is like there are so many opportunities here, so many things that can be done. And if we're so focused on what's happening now, we won't be able to see what's possible. And I think some people I think there was that kind of the perception of like, this is just a static thing. That's it. But there are plans that we don't know about, and there are things that are possible in the future that are going to be really awesome. So,
yeah. Before I get to the VeVeVerse aspect of this interview, Mr. V, do you have more questions about collectings and VeVe in general?
Yeah. So just kind of like to take a little lighthearted approach to this. What was your first take on VeVe when you first joined? What caught your eye about the collectibles and comics? I take it that having spoken with Sean from Comics and Crypto, is that right? If that's correct, that maybe you have an affinity for comics more so than digital collectibles, and then that was perhaps a gateway to the whole app, or what did that look like?
So me getting into VeVe the first time I really opened the app and got in was for the Back to the Future drop. Um, I had bought the Superman one, but I never opened the app again. You know, like it was one of those, like Sean said, hey, get it. And I was like, okay, download. Okay, here, got it. After 30 minutes of trying to get the drop to work. And I guess my first initial perception is like, this is just really clunky and not like a great experience. And I don't understand NFTs at all. And to this day, I think I know about 5%, and it's enough to have conversation. But it's still something that is formulating, and again, a lot of speculation on where it can go. So I don't think it really turned a corner for me until Sean said the Marvel #1 comic was dropping and you need to get it. And at that time, I did not get up at 8 a.m. That was not something I did. So I was more or less annoyed that I was getting pressured to do this. And I was just like, you know what, I'm going to do it. So I spent the $7 and I went back to sleep. And then later on, I woke up and I checked what I had and I was like, okay, screenshot. And I sent it to him and I was like, hey, is this any good? And it was like seconds later, I got a call and he's like, you got a Lomant secret rare.
Whoa.
You sell that, I will. He's like, you sell that, I will disown you as a friend. Like, it's like,
that's crazy.
Okay. Yeah. And so it wasn't until I started to see the value changes and that kind of stuff that I was like, oh, okay, I'm starting to see what this is all about. But what really started to sell me is my association with Sean and how he treats collectibles as if they're an investment stock. I didn't really understand like buying comics and then like selling them, and that it just never clicked until he was like, well, no, what I'm doing is like, okay, Netflix just announced that they bought this IP. They're going to turn it into a show. So I'm going to buy every comic I can get from that because it's low price right now. I'm going to hold on to it or I'm going to grade it. And then when the show comes out, the value is going to go up for these comics. And then I'm going to sell them then. And I've watched him do it over and over and over again. The only problem with the physical collecting side of things is storage and holding on to those things. So the house just gets packed with boxes of comics and things that he's holding on to that eventually will pay off someday, but they have to sit around. Now you're talking about digital NFTs where they're in your phone, or they're going to be in the VeVeVerse, or wherever you've been buying NFTs from. No storage problems. You're fine. So I think that's when it started to really like click, and I got more into it. And now I've bought far too many comics and collectibles over the years.
You find that the collecting aspect on the app has taken a backseat as you started getting more and more invested in these projects that you've been working on? Yes,
absolutely. First, I just need to comment. I just noticed that you're in Iron Man's lab, and I love that so much. It took me a minute. I was like, I want to know where this is. It took me a long time, but then I saw the suits in the background, and I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. That's nice. Yeah. This is going to be your VeVeVerse room, isn't it?
It is. Absolutely. It has to be.
I love that. Back to your original question, which I totally forgot. I'm so sorry.
So has the actual collecting aspect on VeVe taken a backseat to the projects that you've been working on over the past several months?
I wouldn't say that it's taken a backseat, but I've always collected on things that I just like. And part of the reason I was collecting some of this stuff in general is because I was like, oh, I can make a cool video out of this. I know what I would do with that. I think there's a cool story here. Or I really love Back to the Future. I'm going to get everything Back to the Future. Or I'm a big fan of Disney. I try to get the stuff that like speaks to me. I'm not necessarily a collector of the posters or the pictures or, photo, that kind of stuff. But when it comes to like Moana speaks to me because I loved that movie. I went and saw it multiple times in the theaters. I want to collect every car I can. So when Cars came out, I picked that up. Toy Story, I have fond memories of going to the theaters with my dad when I was younger and going to see that movie. So for me, I think it ties more to the nostalgia. But I'm actually still figuring out my collecting journey. I'm still trying to figure out what that means to me. I didn't really find value in anything when I was growing up. If I had something, it eventually would get thrown out. I mean, I still have my original 151 Pokemon cards, but I did not treat them well, so they are trashed. Like I didn't have that mindset. So it's really fascinating to me when I find people that have been collecting their whole lives and hearing why they got into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. Now, I believe that we've pretty much wrapped up our personal questions that we were curious about, and I think we want to transition to some of the questions that the public had for you, and we'll take it from here.
Hey guys, just a quick message. Every week I, Mr. V, work over 20 hours to bring you the most non-BS VeVe content. English is my second language, and there were nights we recorded until 1 a.m. My brain stopped processing, and I naturally spoke Vietnamese to him, and it got pretty weird. But that's just how dedicated we are to this podcast. In return, we ask you to enter a gentleman agreement. We will continue working until 1 a.m. for you, but we ask you to subscribe to the podcast, leave us a rating, and tweet at us to tell us what you think, because those comments will ultimately help us to refine the content just for you. That's it. That's all you need to do. Let's get back to it. All right. I have asked around on Facebook and Twitter and compiled a list of questions from different people. And I know you have signed an NDA with VeVe because you are a beta tester from the VeVeVerse. So I'm just going to ask the questions, and whatever questions you cannot answer because of that, just let me know, okay?
Absolutely.
All right. So Brian from Facebook, his question is, what is the perceived inherent value of the VeVeVerse in your eyes? What do you think this helped VeVe to grow long term?
The VeVeVerse, as it stands and what it will be not only a metaverse platform where you can experience the collectibles that you've been buying, but also being able to build worlds where you can have social interactions from anywhere. Being able to create experiences for your friends, for your family, for anybody who's in the VeVeVerse to come and be a part of it. It's so much more than just a room. It's expansive. You can continue to build with infinite space. There are opportunities to create Twitter spaces, but within the VeVeVerse. Invite everybody in to watch a movie. There's going to be opportunities to play games. There's going to be opportunities to build tracks for racing and so on and so forth. And so I think that there is an infinite opportunity to start from scratch and build a whole new world, and then build another world next to it and another world next to it, and just hit that like Ready Player One experience that I think everybody really is hoping for when it comes to the VeVeVerse.
Wow. And also, I forgot to give everybody some context. Our previous guest, Steve-O, he also has beta access. And I know
Steve-O.
Okay, yeah. Well, this is the context I was talking about. Steve-O would text me at like 1 or 2 a.m. and say, hey, I'm in VeVeVerse and I'm loving it, and I'm still trying to design just the gate for my Disney castle, and it's been taking me hours. I cannot show you anything, but it's awesome. And then he'll be like, so Steve-O is in it several hours a day, but he mentioned to me how what he has seen in your own VeVeVerse space is the best ever. And then he would mention how you were like helping him to build stuff. So I have pretty high expectation for your space. But it's awesome to know that you are helping other people to build a home space too, because I bet this is pretty difficult to most of us, right?
I will say I am probably middle tier when it comes to what I've been seeing people make.
Wow.
Because there are people that have been in this since it started and have not slept. Like I'm watching things get created and they're just firing it off left and right. And we're all in a group where we're getting to see images of what people have been creating, and I'm blown away. And what's great is that because we're all testing, we're all learning together. And we're all sharing together. There's nobody holding back information, and there are people that have been just like, oh, I figured this out. And then they'll just like show everybody and like, oh, I figured this out. And then we'll like create tutorial videos for each other and like send it around so everybody can like make sure that we're all moving at the same pace. I unfortunately am not going to be able to invest as much time as everybody else is in the VeVeVerse over the next few months. So I know that I'm going to be way behind by the time I get back. But what I will say is that what he's talking about building, we are starting with the minimal building blocks to get this going. You got to start somewhere, and you got to start somewhere to create the tools with the building blocks that you have. And once you have better tools, then you can build more, and so on and so forth. And that's just the way even like it works in today, in the modern world. So it does take quite a bit of time to create what we are creating. I will say that once they've implemented our feedback, it's going to make things infinitely faster. And we're going to watch things that we've been taking hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours to build to take minutes, because we finally are able to do the things that we've been asking to do. And the team has been responsive, and they've been listening to us, and they've been answering our feedback and saying, we were going to implement this. We like what you're doing here. You know, but all of that's happening. And the goal is to create a VeVeVerse platform that everyone can use. It doesn't require somebody who's a 3D modeler to do it. If you've ever played a video game and you've picked up a controller, or you've sat at your keyboard and played something on the computer, you should be able to do this in the VeVeVerse. That's the ultimate goal. Now, can other people build more extensive, more detailed because they have a little bit more knowledge? Absolutely. There's going to be opportunities for people to learn that and figure out what they're doing, what we are doing, that have a little bit more understanding of how to work in the 3D world, and try to make it as simple as possible. Give layman's terms for everything and just be like, hey, you want to try and do this? Here are the steps. That's the whole goal.
Right. And I have 3 more questions that I'm just going to combine because they are somewhat related. So Robert on Facebook, he would love to know what you think the current VeVeVerse compared to the levels of functionality and creation of other metaverses. I'm not sure if you are familiar with like Roblox, for example. So that's question number 1. James from Facebook asked if he can get invited to your space when we get access, and then if we can create terrains like mountains and grass with the shapes currently available. Okay. And well, this is somewhat related. So Chris from Twitter said that you saw his tech skill in Vancouver. So his question is, can someone with 2 left hands make a half decent showroom? So this is more of a question. So these questions combine like, can a regular person create a showroom still? And how would you compare this experience to other metaverses? And can you have terrains?
So I haven't had a lot of experience in other metaverses. I have seen Roblox. I have seen stuff like that. I will say that the curve to understand how to use it is a little steep right now, and that's what we're working to flatten out and trying to make it easier in functionality and user interface and so on and so forth. As far as somebody with 2 left hands being able to use it, you can absolutely build a showroom. Everybody can. But what it comes down to is all your imagination and how far you can push it. And what we're trying to do is make it possible for you to picture something that you wouldn't picture before. The whole thing about the VeVeVerse is that anything is possible because you're not working on gravity, you're not working on physics, you're not working within a space where there's permitting or anything like that. It's just whatever you can come up with. I guess a perfect example is those Vaultaholics guys and like Tails and all of those guys that have been building Vault for years now and creating things using all the digital collectibles. They have been creating insane showrooms because their minds are like, oh, if I did this, it would create this cool effect. Or if I went inside the collectible, it would be a totally different view. That's going to be the same thing in the VeVeVerse. As far as building terrain, you can build whatever you want. It just is not going to have we're not at the place where we can modify or mold shapes yet. I believe that it's something that will eventually happen, but for now, we have pretty much all we need to just kind of get started.
Okay. And then this user from Twitter, UNK, U-N-K, I don't know how to pronounce that. He asked, what would you like to see added into the VeVeVerse and what is missing?
What I would love to see added in the VeVeVerse, I believe I would love to see, first off, more users creating. I think we are getting to see so many so many wild rooms right now. I would love to see easier functionality while working within the VeVeVerse. I would love to see more of our collectibles in there and be able to test that out. I would love to see my room load faster because I have way too much stuff in it.
Okay, so it actually takes you time for your room to load. Like, how long does it take your room to load, and how many collectibles do you have in it?
So I don't actually have a lot of collectibles in it.
Mm-hmm.
However, I've been doing a lot of tricks to create animated textures and those kind of things to create a really cool environment, making portals that look animated and things that like it wasn't initially built to do. And so we're pushing it and showing them this is what you can do. And adding all of that stuff, it's just a lot of different file sizes and that kind of thing that all have to load. And so right now it takes a couple minutes for mine to load up. And I even have a screen that I built a sign in front of where you pop up that tells you what I'm working on, what is going to be under construction, what's eventually coming. And that is the first thing to load while everything else loads up.
Wow. And talking about portals, Locke from Twitter, LOCKE from Twitter asked, can you make portals? And by portals, he meant specific locations that trigger displacement to teleport you somewhere where you can go in it.
I will say that he is on the right mindset for thinking creatively. I can't speak on it specifically, but that is something that I also really want. So here's hoping.
Yeah. And then Joe from Twitter, this is maybe the last question that I have from the community, which is, well, I have actually one more. Joe asked, are there tools to build, to help you building your home space in the VeVeVerse, for example, Midjourney, so like an AI generation tool, or Adobe Blender? I'm not very familiar with it. And do you get access to scripting yet? Can you use programming language to create experience or, other games and things like that?
Great question. So currently we are in the process of working with scripting. It's not something that we have access to yet. It's something that we have added on the pipeline of things that we would like. Whether it's going to happen or not is still TBD. As far as the 3D modeling software like Blender and whatnot, we cannot bring in other 3D models into the space. So you have to use the infrastructure that has already been built for you to create 3D models. There are shapes and things that we've already talked about in another Twitter space, where you can control scale, and from an XYZ standpoint, you can change the material of it. There's already some of that in place. It's going to be, if he's familiar with Midjourney AI or Blender, it's going to be much more limited than that at this point in time.
So you said that we cannot upload 3D models, but can we upload 2D photos, like a regular photo, to use as a background?
Yes. So you currently can upload a photo and apply it as a material to something. So if I were to say I want a photo to be on a wall that I took, then I can create a simple shape, such as a square or something, and then I can change the size to whatever I want, and then I change the material to that photo. And now that's stuck on that square, and I can move that wherever I want within the space.
Okay. So going to my own questions. So I have this theory that I think because there's so much freedom, which is a good thing in the VeVeVerse, it might create analysis paralysis for a lot of people, maybe because they have a high expectation of what their showroom will look like, but maybe they have so many collectibles they want to put in, or they don't have the skills and the time needed in order to build a showroom or home space that is worthy of their collection. For example, I know that you have to build like the basis for your collectibles, right? And then you can choose a light what kind of lighting, what color, where do you put the light so that it shines the brightest? Do you put collectibles in your home, or do you build platforms for it? What if you have collectibles from different IPs? Where do you put the Disney stuff next to the DC stuff? Those kind of questions. And maybe VeVe has already come up with a solution to make it as easy as possible. But I just have that concern that it's going to be fun for a day or two, but then it might turn to be a little bit too hard. Maybe you have beta access and your experience may be a little bit different.
I think in general, a user should be able to place anything where they want. And there's going to be opportunities for an economy that's going to exist within the VeVeVerse. I don't think they even realize what they've created yet. And so we will see something, and this is not, I'm not disclosing anything. This is me just speculating, but we will see something where you can hire a designer that's really good in the space to come and build out your home and put everything the way you want it, just like an interior designer. Or that designer can create templates, and you can buy that template from them and use it as your own space over and over again. And as long as you have those collectibles in that template, they'll automatically load it up for you, or you can change them out if you want them to. I see it happening for sure. Yeah. There's full on going to be an economy here.
I actually wrote a tweet about it today, and I talked about it in a previous episode. You remember that, Mr. V? My tweet is basically this. At the moment, there are about 1,000 collectors with over 834 NFTs. And this includes collectibles and comics. We haven't even mentioned comics in the VeVeVerse yet. That's going to be a different beast, right? If my hypothesis is, if these people have the capital to invest in these assets, their time will probably worth a lot of money. And I bet the majority of them will not have enough time time and dedication and talent to create the showrooms that is worthy of their collection. Maybe they want to spend their time making more money. Maybe they just want to spend their time with their family and have the experts do it for them, right? Because it's just not worth it. But then I think this is where the vaults designers can come in and really shine. Maybe people, maybe like the whales, they will need a custom solution to have their showroom customized and designed in a certain way, and they can hire designers. Or maybe for me, I am not a whale, but I want a bat cave. Okay, I have two tots. I want a bat cave for my tot. I can just buy a bat cave template and put my tots there and my other DC collectibles there and just be happy with it. So I think this is a great opportunity for people to shine and really, and I think this user generated content like this, the work that you're doing will really bring the exposure of VeVeVerse to many more people, because if they can show that, okay, I can get all of these IPs in the same place and I can design these showrooms, I think people will be very interested in them.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's definitely opportunity for growth, definitely opportunity for collaboration. I see this sector already having an opportunity to expand very quickly.
Yeah.
I'd say that, whenever you think of a community in real life, everyone has different roles. And what's pretty cool about this transition integrating the VeVeVerse as part of the collecting experience is that we have collectors who establish themselves, and we're seeing the genesis of these roles, individuals such as yourself, where you're really bridging that gap. What you've done with quite literally shown everyone with your through your vision, of what could be. And now that there's this beta version of the VeVeVerse, those people who saw what you were able to through your craft, they're just now experiencing it, and it's like their eyes are wide open, and they're retelling what, of course, because of the NDA, they're sharing with the rest of the community. Hey, just across, just over the hill, you're gonna you're going to see what I see. And, like, you're going to be able to experience what I'm experiencing, and the grass is greener and things like that. So it's pretty exciting. You know, kind of like Will was saying, I myself, I'm up at like 5 or 5:30 every day, and I'm burnt. I'm spent. Like right now, I'm exhausted. But like, what gets me through these sort of is like the adrenaline of being able to speak with somebody new, such as yourself, and you know, and have some really enlightening discussions. But all that being said, yeah, it's pretty cool because the community, the roles within the community are growing, and we can actually see how each person can contribute, because like they're, you know, we all wear different hats, so to speak, and you know, we all have these gifts and talents and strengths, and the VeVeVerse will allow like a whole new bunch of people to be able to showcase and highlight what they can do.
Absolutely. It's going to be a creative explosion is what I think will happen.
Do you have another 15 minutes for a couple more questions?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. So you said that your VeVe's home space, which I bet is incredible, is only like mid-tier. Without revealing too much information, what does like a top tier home space look like or sound like? Because we cannot see anything.
I don't know if I can answer that.
or like what differentiates between the different tiers you are talking about? Is that the number of collectible? Is that how they use the lighting? Is that how they have multiple spaces for each IP, for example?
I would say what's differentiating it to me is the amount of effort and details being put into it by these creators. And what you're seeing is everybody's different perspective on how they create their art. So you're turning all of these people into artists, which is really, really something. It's really cool to see people expressing themselves in a whole new way. You take people who have been showing us their vaults and creating these amazing vault rooms on VeVe for the past couple of years, and you put them in a space where they have way more capabilities. It's been pretty fantastic.
Yeah. What do you think about the recent pump in some interesting collectibles like the Avengers Tower, even the Coca-Cola orb, or the house from the Up movie? So a lot of people were talking about, oh, okay, these are the structures or these are the things I need to have in the VeVeVerse, so I'm going to go buy them.
I think that you can create whatever you want within the VeVeVerse, and if you want to add a structure that's already existing, it's going to be one, way less work, and two, it creates another opportunity to have additional space within your VeVeVerse. I think first off, I love the Up House. I have several of them, and I have a couple low mint ones that I love. And the Avengers Tower looks fantastic, and it was something that already looked good in the AR. Can't say what it looks like in the VeVeVerse, but I will say Tails had brought up that there's opportunities for you to build rooms in it. So I could see why people pumped it.
Okay. And then, so I know that you have mentioned how this is going to be a great space for creative people. But that's not everybody of us, right? Like, I'm not that creative in terms of building showrooms or home spaces. What will be the experience for a regular person like me or Mr. V? What would be the social experience look like? And how do you think non-creative folks, like regular folks who don't care too much about showrooms, can enjoy the VeVeVerse? Maybe from like a social aspect or something else? Because ultimately, VeVe want people to stay, right? VeVe want to make this VeVe experience a sticky product so that people come back. And not everybody can design, you know? So what are the other things they can do? Well, what are the other things we can do as collectors so that we can spend more time there?
So I'm still not very good at building showrooms in the VeVe app. It's not something that I was ever good at, so I never did. When people come into the VeVeVerse, there are more opportunities for you to get creative. If you're not a creative person and you're not really interested in putting out your collectibles or doing any of that stuff, there is a social aspect to everything, and there's an experiential aspect to everything. And it's kind of like if you go to Disneyland, you didn't build one of the rides, but you're going to go ride one, you know, or you go to Universal Studios, you're going to enjoy it, but you didn't build it. That's coming. A lot of that is coming. There's going to be full on explosion of entertainment in the VeVeVerse. And I think that for those of you that are worried about building them out, or I have to be able to do this to even get involved in it, why would I even bother? I don't really care about building out vaults or museums or all the things that people speculated on. Don't do that. Go hang out in your other friends' places, like, because that was the point. The point was to be able to open up and be able to hang out with your friends and see what they're doing too, and socialize. I mean, we're already doing it here. We're doing it on Twitter. We're doing it on Discord. It's just another way to experience life, and it's going to be really cool.
Right. And my next question is on comics. We've never seen comics in the showroom. We've never seen comics in the VeVeVerse, I assume, right? How do you think having comics available in the VeVeVerse will A, affect the value of comics, and B, how can you like imagine what people would do with comics?
So I am not a huge comic book collector outside of VeVe. I do have a few choice comics that I love and I hang up on my wall. I will say that when the experience of reading a comic comes back for people and they're buying not just for investments and not just to collect, but actually read it, and that is something that's more visually pleasing and easier to do within the VeVeVerse, then I think the value will go up in that sense because you're getting to actually experience the comic. I think that I'm not necessarily of the mind that displaying low mints is something that's going to be something I'm interested in. I think just having a piece of that history is really important. And I think a lot of other people might find that important. Like, oh, I need to have one of those Marvel #1 comics. I have not necessarily enjoyed the experience of reading a comic on the VeVe app. I think that it's a good start, and it's pretty cool to be able to see where it's going and being able to lay it on a table and just go ahead and open your phone and read. But I'm also not a reader on my phone. I can't do, that's my personal bias. Like, I'll pick up a book and I'll read it because that's what I like to do. But because I can feel it and I can experience the book, you know. But I do see where something like the Vision Pro could provide another visual experience with comics. I'm curious what kind of modifications will be done to comics over the years, if we're going to be able to see more animated comics and have that kind of experience. But I don't know. I'm not an expert.
Mr. V, do you have a question? I saw you leaning in.
No.
Oh.
I can relate to you with like having tangible paper. Yeah, I have a hard time reading on the app as well. So, no real comment.
Yeah. So you have worked directly with the VeVe team. You have kind of like have a very strong vision of what it would look like. And then now you have access to VeVeVerse. How do you envision VeVe in the next year, maybe in 2024 or in the next 3 to 5 years, in terms of the app by itself and the whole ecosystem with the app and the VeVeVerse?
I think the VeVe team has always been striving to make a better experience for everyone. But what they had is something that we were ready for it to continue to grow, and so were they. But it's just takes more time to develop. And I know there have been bumps and bruises along the way. And for those of us who have stuck it out, we are starting to see the results of what we've been sticking it out for. And those new people that are going to come in are going to have a much more welcoming experience into the VeVe platform. So I do see that there's going to be a growth because it becomes easier to be involved and because people start to understand the values of what's going on. And especially with the launch of the VeVeVerse, being able to be like, well, I want that. Why can't I have that? Oh, I have to go buy that. Well, what's the value of that? And then seeing the marketplace and then seeing what it looks like in other people's rooms. And that's going to be able to grow. I know VeVe is also focused on growing the company in the right speed. And so in the next year or two, we might see some growth. We might see an explosion. I don't know. I don't know when this bear market will end. I don't know when there'll be a bull run. I just know that what I've seen them doing is that they've always been holding themselves accountable. They've always been pushing forward, and they've actually been delivering the stuff that they said they were going to deliver. Even if it wasn't on time, they've been bringing it. And we're going to see continuous progress. And luckily, they are listening to the VeVe fam. They are listening to the testers. They're taking what we're saying and they're taking it to heart, and they're making changes. We've watched them do it over and over again. And so that's something that's welcoming, and I have faith in the company to continue to grow.
Yeah. And I guess my last question is, and I know this might be related to the NDA that you have signed, but did you see any mention of Omi in the VeVeVerse, or any like just insights to the involvement of the token there?
I have no idea.
Okay, got it. Yeah. And so MetaVerse Lyfe, thank you so much for, coming on, spending time with us, and all the work
thank you so much
that you're doing. Because, like I said, what you did really opened people's mind to what they can do with their collectibles. And, it basically gave me a vision of the VeVeVerse before the VeVeVerse was a thing. So I really appreciate the work that you're doing, and we cannot wait for the next chapter of your creative work. And we hope that you have a great time in Europe. You said that you're going to Europe in September?
Yeah, I leave September 2nd.
Okay, got it. So thank you so much, and have a great journey.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah,
thanks, man. It's been a pleasure, and safe travels.
Appreciate you. Yeah, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All right. Bye, guys. That is it, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have enjoyed the episode today. And if you have, remember that gentleman agreement. We will continue working until 1 a.m. just for you. But in return, we ask you to subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss out on the actionable and valuable insights, everything VeVe and Omi related. Don't forget to give us a rating and tweet at us to let us know what you think about the podcast so that we can refine the content better just for you. Thank you so much. We hope to see you again next time. Peace.